Hello, and welcome to episode 15 of the Real Estate Investors Club podcast. I'm here today with my co host, Axel, and with Liza Rogers, who is the founder of WREN, which is the Women's Real Estate Network. And she's based in Victoria. And she's also done something very interesting in COVID. We were just talking about it off camera, of coming out with a book called Ordinary to Extraordinary, which is basically about the journey that different female real estate investors across Canada have had. So we're going to get into that a little bit today. But by way of introduction, Liza, why don't you just tell us a bit about who you are and what you do?
Thanks, Terry and Axel, for having me here. It's awesome to get to chat, to two colleagues in Montreal, and as you mentioned, I'm over here in Victoria. And yeah, we took the opportunity with COVID to write a book, and it's been an exciting journey. A little bit about me: I'm a gypsy, I'm a traveler. I often tell people that I retired first, and now I have to kind of start working. And so at this point in my life, I'm in my 50s, and I said, you know what, I got to find something that's going to set me up for retirement. And as I started looking, real estate, that was the path. And so now on my journey, I just discovered that tons of women feel like they're left out of the real estate market. They feel like they're never going to get in. They're afraid to tap into equity that they're sitting on, especially in places like Victoria and Vancouver. And so WREN was formed, and we're a big group of women who want the best out of life. We love to travel. We want to own properties together in Mexico and Portugal, and we want to help build wealth in our communities. And we're going for it. And that's the Coles Notes version of me and what we've been doing.
Well, why don't you just walk us in a little bit more detail? First of all, like, how did you get started as an investor? And then how does that turn into WREN? Because, I mean, like, there's so many of us who are investing and not everyone starts an investors network. So
I know I'm a little bit crazy that way. I remember a colleague of mine saying to me a few years ago, you jump right from learning to teaching. And I think it's, oh gosh, I may get it wrong here. It may be Maslow's hierarchy, but there's something about learning is the highest form of, or teaching is the highest form of learning. And she had said, like, you're this person who you learn something and you immediately want to share it, and you immediately jump into hosting, facilitating, teaching. That might come from my tour guide background. My journey started, I came back from Australia. I'd been living in Australia for a year, and I was actually looking at buying a hotel down there with a colleague. Didn't work out, that's a whole other book. But I got back and I'm thinking, okay, I basically have to start over. So what am I going to do? And as I mentioned, I was looking at all kinds of options, the dreaded job, which, I had to do that for a while. But I kept looking at real estate and thinking, if I want to continue to live this big life and have the freedom to travel and encourage my friends to jump in and come along with me, because I've been a solo traveler for so many of my journeys. It's great to be able to say to your friends, hey, let's go and work overseas for a month, or let's go travel together and go backpacking somewhere, or go riverboating in Europe. So I wanted to make sure that as I was feeling empowered, that I was getting other women in my team and my tribe to feel the same way. I just dove in and got as much information as I possibly could, and networked and met people. And as I was going through this whole process, I was realizing that it was mostly men. I realized that as I was learning, I really needed to be able to, jump in and teach as well. So that was how WREN was born. I remember when I first got here, I got a lot of, oh, we don't do things like that around here, or right, or who are you, right? Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just a woman who's doing real estate. Like, it's not that big of a deal, So that's kind of the journey that I've been on. And
It seems like there's a reoccurring thread with what you've mentioned is your desire, like as soon as you learn something, to want to share it with others. And that's something I can relate to, because so many times, like, well, I mean, if this works, why aren't more people doing it? And so to create a platform and a network to actually structure it and make it easier, it obviously facilitates a lot. My question connected to this is, very early on, you mentioned you wanted to start the network for women. Obviously, you saw that need, but did you face resistance? Like, are some women actually, they want to, they're scared, and how did you go about breaking that barrier to actually get them involved?
Yeah, great question, Axel. So yes, there was resistance. So, a couple of my guy friends, I love them dearly and they've come a long way, but I had a couple of my guy friends in the beginning say, you realize you're starting a sexist organization. And I'm like, oh my God, come on, seriously? Like, we're just trying to market to women, right? We've got a lot of pink in our world, like, it's not, we're not excluding men. And in fact, I have guys in the women's real estate network. Two of my biggest sponsors are men because they see the importance of getting women involved in investing in real estate, not just in buying real estate, but investing in projects, in developments, in housing. And so the resistance was, first it was a lack of understanding, right? Like there were a lot of really puzzled faces, like, what? I don't get it. What are you doing? I'm getting women together to collaboratively learn and buy real estate. It's not that complicated. But there were a lot of people who just hadn't been exposed to this whole, joint venture, general partnership, limited partnership, passive investing, active investing, flipping. It was kind of the HGTV romance that people were familiar with seeing, all of the beautiful TV shows where everything works out perfectly. But the reality seemed a lot scarier. So it was helping women to understand what's possible and showing them that you don't kind of do it all at once. You work your way into it slowly, right? You build a team, you learn some of the basics, you watch what other people are doing and you kind of observe from behind. You read a lot, you go to networking events, you meet people who are doing it, you get in the room where there are people actively investing. And that was one of the key things with the ladies, right? Like there just wasn't a lot of sort of networking opportunity for women to be in a room and talk about real estate. And that is really changing now. It's so much different than it was 5-6 years ago.
Mm-hmm. But so let me ask you, I in your book, you mention a couple times that you feel like women's approach to real estate or women's approach to investing might be different. So I've kind of had a sneaking suspicion of this myself for a while, but you're our guest today. So tell us how do you see those differences?
Well, I think the differences can be as big or as subtle as we kind of we're generalizing here, right? So I guess that's the thing that I have to say. First of all, I never want to disrespect the guys. I love the guys, but what we want to say about women is women do tend to approach real estate more holistically. And the data shows, and this is global data from vetted organizations, United Nations, Clinton Foundation, lots of organizations that study women around the world. It shows when you invest in a woman, 60 to 80% of that money that she gets into her business or her pocket goes back into the community. When you invest in a man, it's much less than that. It's 80% he usually keeps in his company or his pocket. So it's a massive difference. So
Wow.
what that shows us is that, when you invest in a woman, that has a trickle down effect, right? And I've started actually saying a trickle up effect, right? It's like we're lifting each other up. We're investing in our local stores. We're investing in each other. I mean, one of the things that we do with WREN, some people to say, well, that may end up lowering the caliber because you're going to hire people that are less trained. And it's like, okay, well, the other argument is if we just have more diversity and more kind of a variety of ways to look at things, that's in the end, that gets us to a much better place. Women can see that by becoming real estate investors, they can help their community. They're actually going to jump in faster because it's not just about the bottom line. Yeah, it's great to, make money on a flip or get monthly cash flow or, build a development and make hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. But it's also really amazing when you can say, I built 100 rental units for my community, or I built a seniors home for my community. And we've got women in the book who have done exactly that.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, that's great, right? So, I think one aspect you mentioned is kind of the trickle up effect. But something else that I want to just poke you to tell us about is, so I participate in martial arts, and I did a coaches course not long ago where they basically told us that the attrition rate for women in sports as they go through adolescence is 5 to 1. So, out of every 6 girls who does sports as a kid, 5 of them are going to drop out while they're in adolescence. And one of the reasons that they give for this is that women's approach to learning is not exactly the same as men, and that there's like an aspect to feeling intimidated and competition that works a little bit different. So I'm sure you have some ideas about that. And that's going to then feed into Axel's next question about how different people can encourage more women into the sphere. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's another, that's definitely another piece of it, right? Women are less competitive. And rather than making that a disadvantage, we have to make that an advantage because yes, there's place for competition and competition is great for a lot of different things to get us ahead. But for me, collaboration is key. Collaboration just allows you to get so many more people so further ahead, and collaboration to me has a ripple effect because it's like I tell two people and they tell two people, and that old kind of adage of the ripple effect and how everything grows out and goes out. So competition definitely has its place, but collaboration means that you're all moving forward together. One of the things we have to also start celebrating more is feminine energy, right? And it's the going at things a little bit softer, being a little bit more inquisitive, being curious and open. And those are kind of feminine qualities that we know and see and understand. And instead of those being looked at now as things that slow down an organization's move forward, we're now realizing the value of those. We're realizing the value of valuing your employees, valuing your community, looking for the win, not only for your organization, but how to create multiple wins. Like I have a whole course that I'll probably release next year about 5 wins, right? So everything that you do in business and in life, you can actually create so that there's a 5-win piece to it.
Absolutely. And then, wow, I love the fact that you ended with like, we need to celebrate more because I find that's something that's not done enough whenever we do projects. It's like, hey, you just finish your project, you did a big refinance, everyone's happy. Let's celebrate. Come
Yeah,
on. Like, at
yeah,
least,
exactly.
you mentioned the need for collaboration and that being a strong point of women and also changing some of the values that we have that women bring that aren't necessarily perceived in the same way. And I was going to go one step further is that, and I'll make kind of a general statement there, is that we know we still live in a patriarchal society still way too much. And as a male real estate investors, I really want to support more women. And I'm going to ask you from the personal side, like, what can men do to slowly change things?
As men, what you can do is you can support the women getting the seat at the table. Right. One of the
Yeah.
things that I say right now to my group in particular is you're not asking for a seat at the table anymore. You're saying, make room, I'm coming in and I'm taking this seat. Right. And so, I think we've reached a point now where, asking politely to say, oh, please, sir, can I come in? That's bullshit. Sorry. Say that,
Yeah.
but like we have to just get past that. Right. And there's nothing wrong with just saying, I'm coming in, I'm coming to the table. And so what we are asking the guys to do is to be welcoming, right? Be supportive, start to understand what it is that women actually bring to that table, because it's a different perspective. And if we're going to solve the problems that this world has, we need as many different perspectives as possible. And the more creativity and the more curiosity we approach these things with, the better we're going to be able to, solve the housing crisis, put an end to world hunger, right? Celebrate the things that we're doing well, lift more women out of poverty, get more girls educated. I mean, one of the things I read a couple years ago is the the number of children that are being born in like the continent of Africa has declined dramatically over the last 10 years because women are allowed to be educated. And so, we're having an impact on the global population by educating women. Like it just seems so logical, but it's taken us a long time to get there, and we still have a ways to go. So from the guy's perspective, we love the male perspective. We love the male energy, but we also want to be loved for what women are bringing to the table. We don't want to come in and become guys. We don't want to, you got to be more like the man. It's like, no, we don't. We have to stay as we are. We have to keep that feminine energy and bring what that and allows to the table. And that, again, curiosity, collaboration, lifting people up, questions, conversation, not competing, but how do we work through this together, and how do we make this better? And that, that's the biggest thing. Reach out to the women in your community and say, hey, we'd love to help you get involved in real estate. What can we do to support you? And being, I think, kind and gentle about it, right?
But so, Liza, let me ask you, one of the ways that you came onto my radar was with the book that you helped. I guess it's I don't want to say co-author or a curate.
Yeah,
You've
curate.
just
That's the easiest
yeah,
way. Yeah.
that you've just come out with. So, Ordinary to Extraordinary: Stories of Different female success stories of investors across Canada. So,
Yeah.
tell me, what's the book about, and how did you put that together during COVID?
Yeah. Well, I think COVID was key. I mean, we were all kind of like stuck at home, and so I thought, okay, I have about a half a dozen books in my head, and so I've always wanted to write a collaborative book with women investors, and the timing was perfect. COVID gave us a lot of opportunity that we took. Everybody at the first was kind of like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And one of the things that we did with our group was, come on, everybody, you got to take your head out of the sand. You have to look at the opportunity that this is bringing, right? We're being given a crisis, and how we deal with it is going to shape our future. And so we just dug our heels in. And the book was one of the amazing results of that. And so I'm super proud of all of the women in this book. I mean, the stories are, the vulnerability. I mean, that's one of the things I haven't talked much about yet, but that's one of the feminine sides of that, is when people see and hear and feel that you have struggled and you've overcome, because we all have struggles, we all overcome things, that kind of message says, well, they overcame it, so maybe I can too. And that's really the biggest message in the book. If we can do it, I came back from Australia and basically hid under my mom's duvet for a week because I was devastated. I was heartbroken. I was broke. I had to completely reinvent myself and out of the ashes, right? Ava Benisaki is doing massive things with the US market, right? I think her last project had a value of $90 million. So partnering with organizations in the US, teaching people that they can become passive investors, showing people how they can get returns on their money monthly, quarterly, annually, however they have it structured, and having the guts to go and partner with groups in the US and get into, $90 million projects, right? Like, people don't do that every day. Starting co-living. I mean, the big trend that is going to continue to grow coming out of COVID, the remote worker, all of these kinds of things, co-living, co-ownership, co-housing, co-working, right? All of the co's are starting collaborating, right? They're all going to be on trend for the next 10 years. So yeah, the book, total labor of love, great stories, real vulnerability. And I'm just so proud of all of the women who just like laid it on the table and said, here we are, and warts and all, and if we can do it, so can you.
I think, what I love about what you just said, there's two things there. And I think the first one is the fact of that, like, this, I guess it's like, kind of a feminine vulnerability, not that men can't be vulnerable, but I think that for women, it's like maybe just a little bit easier, and it's like more of a way that like we relate to each other, like I as you were talking, I was like thinking about the times at which like I meet new women and meet new people, and very often like they will lead with their vulnerabilities. Like that's kind of a feminine thing to do. I think that that's a very, like you said, empowering thing. And it's not necessarily like really empowering to the speaker, but it's very empowering to everyone who hears the story, because it demystifies things and it makes people think like, yeah, hey, if she can do it, I can do it. And if she had those hard things on her path that she overcame, like maybe I can do it too. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So I think
Yeah.
that's
And
great. And then, the other thing that I, really, I guess, responded to with the collaborative effort is that, like, when I was like coming up as a either real estate investor or even like in the sport that I do, people always ask me like, who are your mentors? Who did you look up to? And like, I never know how to answer that question, because at the time when I was like making my path, there weren't really women ahead of me that I could look at and say, oh, I want to be her one day. And I think that that's just such a powerful thing to put into the world, because every example that you put out there of someone who managed to succeed just opens the way. It's like the wake of a boat, right? It like opens this path behind that we can be like, oh, look, here's an example of someone who did this, or here's an example of like how you can reconcile like family with success, which was when I think of the Ashley Wilson episode that our previous episode, she has like some kids, and when you look at what she's doing and you're like, wow, and she has young kids while she's doing it, like if she can do it, so can I. So I think that's
Exactly.
very empowering on both ends.
Yeah, great. And just with the vulnerability piece, right? Like as women, and for the men in our life too, we need to get back to that, because we've taken away one of the things that men want to be able to do, and that's to support us. And when we come across as, I can do this all by myself, I don't need you, right? Like, ladies, like, come on, right? You gotta let the men in your life help in whatever way that is. And you might not need the help, but just if you're falling down, or you need to get something out or have a cry, like let the guys in your life help you with that, because men are lost right now. Like they, all these strong women that are like, I don't need you for anything, I can do it on my own, right? We got to get back to being vulnerable, not only for the empowerment of ourselves and other women, but also to empower men, to help men feel empowered again, because we've taken, the feminine kind of movement has taken that away. And I feel like we need to add that back in again. So sorry, Axel, I interrupted you.
No, no, you didn't interrupt me. I'm glad you mentioned this, because I was going to go back to what you said 2-3 times earlier, but like showing the vulnerability on the women's side, and women are a lot more able to do it. I was going to say easier, whereas men, sometimes we still have no, if you show weakness, like that's not good. No one's going to want to invest with you. Whereas thinking back, I've listened to like hundreds of hours of podcasts and read books and stuff. And the most impactful were usually the ones where they said, I did a project that was absolutely terrible, and I'm going to tell you all of my mistakes. Because we keep hearing about those great successes, but the most impact is often like just sharing the list of all the stupidities that we did on a project. And that's a pure example of the vulnerability of like, I made this mistake, I made that mistake, I would do this differently. And it's true that women do have the ability, I find, to share it and to let it out in an easier way. And that's something that, man, we really need to work on it, because we always want to put the game face on. And that's ridiculous.
I'm so glad that you feel that way, right? I mean, it's life changing. Like when Brene Brown really did a great job of hammering that home for us, and opening up that whole topic of vulnerability again. And I feel really glad that we are embracing it. I mean, we really are embracing being vulnerable again. And it's so important. And it is, I know I've said this so many times, but it's so empowering, right? Like when you just let it out, when you tell people, like I remember this weekend, I just was having a day, and I just, I had some tears, and, all my team just came together and went, it's okay, we got you, right? And I'm like, yeah, because I'm going to be like this all day, and I'm in a mood, and that's just what it is, right? And so we have to be allowed to be in that space instead of just covering it up. And I learned years ago, you've got to be allowed to not be happy all the time. And I'm a pretty positive, happy person. But yeah, I allow myself, and the people in my life know, like if I'm not having a good day, or if I'm going to have a cry, nothing's going to stop me, right? Like it's going to happen. and you're going to have to deal with it.
As we let it out, I was gonna like slightly shift the conversation because we've talked a lot about the network that you've built and empowering these women, but it is in the end for real estate projects to create value, to create wealth for those involved. And so just before we started, we talked about a large land development that you have going around just north of Victoria, and then also another property for a redevelopment on a house to do, I think, 20 homes. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Because it might actually spark some interest in more women wanting to be involved with these particular
Yeah.
properties.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are two great stories. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share those. So Brett McLean, who's in the book, and she's, dreaming of getting back to the simpler life, always wanting to have an organic farm, has two children and a husband, and now she's got a dog and cows and goats and the whole works. But she was kind of in the corporate rat race and just feeling like she was missing some things. Basically, a friend of hers who had seen one of the big investment conferences that I hosted here in Victoria said, you're looking at this property, you need to talk to Liza Rogers from WREN. So Brett gives me a call, and I got to tell you, Brett's got guts, right? Like, here's this 145-acre property, and she decides that she's going to buy it. It's an incredible price, but it's a formerly logged property. It kind of looks messy. It's got amazing ocean views. And so this ballsy woman ties it up, right? So what do we say in real estate investing? Tie it up, get it under contract, figure it out afterwards. So she gets it under contract. And then I get this phone call and she says, yeah, I'm not 100% sure what I've got here. And I said, do you have a lawyer? So that was the first thing that we did, was got her in touch with the lawyer. And so the sort of conclusion of that was she was just about getting ready to close, needed a couple $100,000 more to finish the deal. And I happened to have a friend of mine, Stefan, in town, and he's wanted to do real estate development for ages, and he's looking at some property. And I said, Brett might need an investor for her Souk property. Why don't we give her a call and just see if she wants partners on that? And so I just said, look, if you put up the money, I'll be your partner, right? So it's like, you're not going to get into this deal without taking me along with you. So it's one of those, great stories of other people's money as well, using other people's money. It really does happen, and it's totally legitimate, and it creates a win-win for everybody. So we called Brett, and she's like, oh my God, like perfect timing. Yes, I need a couple, almost $300,000 to close. And so Stefan's like, okay, well, if you want Liza and I as partners, I'll write you a check. And so we did the paperwork, did the shareholders agreement. And so the three of us became owners of this property in Souk. So it's 145 acres. We're keeping 40 acres until next year. We're going to decide, do we want to do container homes? Do we want to put a little vineyard in there? Do we want like a little eco village? Do we want a tiny homes? We're going to save that. We're selling 4 10-acre parcels. So those will come on sale probably in January. They're gorgeous ocean view lots. You can see the Olympic mountain range in the background. They're absolutely beautiful. And Brett has been building her, 30-acre farm with goats and chickens and turkeys and horses. And it's just been the most incredible journey. I've never done a bare land development before. We've learned about putting in roads. We've learned about putting in hydro poles. We've learned about digging wells and sewers and all of the things, cell towers, and all of the things that go along with taking a plot of land that was a forested, logged piece of property, and the forestry company left it in a disaster. I mean, that could be a whole other story. And taking it and creating something beautiful out of it that's going to be, awesome for a group of families to come and enjoy and build their dream home or their family home or their estate home or their little hobby farm or whatever the case may be.
So I think we're kind of getting towards wrap up. Liza, do you want to tell our audience how they can get in touch with you if they want to?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really easy. It's wren.club. So it's WREN.CLUB. That's the website. You can send us an email, info@wren.club. The book is available there. There's videos. We've got YouTube channel. We've got Facebook pages. All of the links are there. And we are always happy to welcome more women and, of course, our enlightened men into the group. And yeah, we just want to say if we can do it, so can you. And ladies and gentlemen, like, get out there, just start, right? Like, that's the thing. Just get started, take the leap, get started, and find your tribe, find your people, and you'll just be amazed at what can happen, and the snowball effect that you have for yourself, your friends, and your community.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you so much, Terry and Axel. It's been great to be here.
Thank you, Liza.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.